The dark psychology of social media vanishers. You disappeared from social media and no one cared. Let's call it what it is. The fake vanish. You stop posting, stop replying, act like you left for your mental health, while you're still lurking every story, creeping every feed, and accidentally liking stuff at 2 a.m. Then, a month later, you pop back in expecting a parade. Where have you been? We missed you, and the room doesn't even look up. That sting you feel? That's reality. The internet isn't a town square that notices who's missing. It's a conveyor belt. It doesn't care if you step off. It keeps moving. Here's the uncomfortable part. A lot of folks who step away aren't detoxing. They're avoiding accountability. They want the relief hit without changing the habits that built the mess. They blame the apps for ruining productivity, but the second they delete them, they just swap in another distraction. News rabbit holes, endless YouTube, busy work dressed as progress. Weeks later, nothing's different. Same output, same excuses, same low-grade shame. Then they crawl back to social and act shocked that their results didn't magically improve. That's not a platform problem. That's a discipline problem. And spare me the "I'm off social because I'm grinding on my goals." If social media is part of your field, writer, designer, coach, artist, founder, going ghost is self-sabotage. Distribution isn't optional, it's the job. You don't have to love the platforms, but pretending you're too pure for marketing is just fear in a nicer outfit. The pros post through discomfort. They treat their feed like a channel, not a diary. They schedule, batch, ship, and log off. Meanwhile, the I hate social crowd spends more time complaining about algorithms than actually using them. They'll post everything but their craft, then wonder why nothing moves. It isn't the algorithm. It's the inconsistency. It's the lack of a plan. It's quitting every time the metrics bruise your ego. Here's what really drives the fake vanish. You wanted applause, not progress. You imagined your absence would create gravity. People DMing, "Are you okay?" And when that didn't happen, you decided social media is trash. No. The algorithm isn't cold, it's neutral. It reflects exactly what you put in. Sporadic effort, sporadic results. Creatives who win are the ones who keep showing up when it's boring, when they're cranky, when the numbers dip. They don't ask their audience to babysit their motivation. If you genuinely need a break, take one like an adult, without theatrics. Tell 2 or 3 real people how to reach you. Step away on purpose. Go build the thing you say you're building. But if you're leaving just to peek from the shadows and wait for applause, save it. The internet won't validate you for disappearing. It barely validates you for showing up. That's why you can't anchor your self-worth to it. On the business side, the math is even harsher. Saying, "I'm taking a social break to focus on work," while you're trying to grow a brand, is like opening a restaurant and locking the doors at lunch. You don't have to post your breakfast, your dog, your horoscope. Post the work. Teach something specific to someone specific, on a schedule you can actually keep. Use the tool and stop letting the tool use you. You hate social? Fine. Hate it and still operate like a pro. Or quit the game and stop pretending you want in. Both are valid. The wobbling in between is what wastes years. And the comeback? Don't romanticize it. When you return, nobody's rolling out a carpet. That's not cruelty. That's attention economics. People have their own lives. If you want them to care, earn it consistently, repeatedly, without the dramatic exits. The market rewards reliability, not mood swings. If you're reading this and thinking, Okay, but what do I do with all this? Start small and kind. Attention is a drug, not a metaphorical one. A real, variable reward loop that hits your brain like a slot machine. That's why the "I'm leaving social" post feels like a grand finale, and the "I'm back" post feels like a comeback tour. But if you actually need a break, make it a boundary, not a broadcast. Close the app. Tell the 3 people who really matter how to reach you. Then honor your own decision. Doing it for applause isn't a detox. It's a different high. And let's drop the victim act. Social media is not a haunted house. You're not trapped in there. It's a room you furnish. If your feed is a mess, it's because you kept inviting chaos in. You follow people who annoy you, doom scroll accounts you hate, and then complain that your mental health is fried. That's not the algorithm's fault. That's a lack of discipline. Cure it like a grown-up. Unfollow, mute, block, build lists. If your living room stank, you wouldn't write a think piece about the trash. You'd take the bag out. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The reason you keep the noise is image management. You're scared to unfollow because you don't want to look petty, or because a thinner friends list makes you feel smaller. You're also not being honest about what you use the apps for. Half the accounts you can't stand are there because outrage gives you a hit. You don't need that person's takes. You need the spike of self-righteousness they give you. Call it what it is, and it loses power. The fix is boring and effective. Audit, prune, and move with intent. 10 minutes a week, unfollow 5 accounts that drain you, mute 10 more, add 2 that teach you something, or genuinely make you kinder, smarter, calmer. Turn off push notifications. Park the apps on the last screen of your phone. If you're a creator or you do business online, treat the platforms like a tool bench, not a casino. Show up on a schedule, ship the work, interact with your actual audience, then leave. Consistency beats confessionals. Strategy beats mood. Most of all, stop performing breaks. If you need rest, take it quietly and stick to it. If you're staying, stay on purpose. Either way, own your attention like the asset it is. Unfollow isn't an act of war. Mute isn't betrayal. Boundaries aren't rude. They're how you stop being tossed around by a feed and start being a person again. This is not a sermon against leaving or staying. It's an invitation to stop performing your absence. The passive-aggressive ghost and return routine helps nobody, least of all you. The feed won't mourn you, and that fact is neutral. Your worth never lived there. Belonging lives in a handful of people who can actually knock on your door, in work you can point at when the lights are off, in a nervous system that isn't yanked around by the next ping. You disappeared from social media, whether you announced it. You didn't announce it. The end result was the same when you returned. No one cared. All right, take a breath with me. Everything I just said was for the performative farewell tour crowd, the folks who turn leaving into content and expect a standing ovation on the way out. But that's not everyone who goes quiet. Some of you aren't chasing reactions. You're trying to survive the noise. You're not staging a comeback. You're protecting your sanity. Different story, different heart. There's a quiet kind of burnout the internet doesn't have language for. It isn't dramatic. No rage quits, no speeches, no last post, bye. It's the slow fade. You slip out of the room and the feed barely stutters. Stories keep stacking. Timelines keep moving, and that tiny private ache appears. If I disappeared and nothing changed, what does that say about me? People who vanish from social media rarely do it because they're indifferent. Most of the time, it's the opposite. They've felt too much for too long, with too few places to set the feelings down. Part of that pain is structural. The modern feed is an attention market that measures presence with visible signals, likes, views, comments, and treats absence as zero. When you go quiet, the machine doesn't send a search party. It simply routes traffic elsewhere. That indifference can feel personal even when it isn't. Psychologists have long shown how sensitive we are to perceived social exclusion. A neutral algorithm can still sting like rejection. So the silence after disappearing isn't just quiet. It's data that seems to confirm the fear you already carry. Maybe I never mattered here. It makes sense that some people would rather step away than keep bargaining with that fear every time they open an app. There's also the nervous system piece no feed can see. Many vanishers are highly sensitive to stimulation. Scroll enough and the brain starts running hot. Pings, lights, faces, opinions, outrage, applause, all of it arrives faster than a human body can metabolize. Research on sensory sensitivity and high reactivity suggests that some nervous systems simply absorb more from the environment. What looks like just scrolling from the outside can be a full-body experience on the inside. Logging off isn't avoidance in that context. It's a way to let the system cool. And then there is performance. Social media collapses audiences, family, friends, co-workers, strangers into one single room. Sociologists call it context collapse. Every post becomes a stage where you're suddenly presenting to everyone at once. Even if you're not consciously performing, your brain is doing the math. Is this too much vulnerability for work friends? Too little warmth for close friends? Too polished for people who prefer you raw? That constant impression management breeds a special kind of fatigue. The self starts to feel thin. Vanishing can be a quiet attempt to thicken again, to feel like a person instead of a profile. Comparison is its own undertow. The feed is heavy on highlight reels. Even when you know better, the brain still tallies. Decades of work on social comparison show that upward comparison to people who seem better off tracks with more envy, more shame, and lower mood. You can care about people and still feel diminished by their happiest announcements arriving every hour. If you disappear, it may be because you're tired of seeing your life through a measuring stick you never agreed to hold. Some disappearances are about control and privacy, not drama. Being watched, even benignly, changes how we move. If your life is in flux, if you're grieving, if your health, mental or physical, is unpredictable, the gaze of 100 acquaintances can feel like a pressure you didn't consent to. Disappearing restores a kind of sovereignty. What happens to me belongs to me again. Memory returns to its natural state, imperfect, private, human, rather than a catalog of proof. There's a relationship layer too. Attachment research describes how people seek closeness or distance under stress. For some, silence is a way to stop the hurt before it starts. Pull back first, so no one can pull away from you. For others, silence is the only bearable option when the need to be seen collides with the fear of being misunderstood. You want connection, but the prospect of managing dozens of weak ties when your heart only has energy for 2 or 3 deep ones feels impossible. Vanishing becomes a way to narrow the circle without the conflict of saying so out loud. Shame hides in here as well. Not the loud, performative kind, more the quiet, bodily sense that you're off pace with your peers, not moving as fast, not as happy, not as successful, not as clear. When that hum is constant, posting starts to feel like volunteering for judgment. The torturous part is that the judgment isn't necessarily coming from others. It's coming from the inner narrator who has absorbed years of cultural scripts about what a good life should look like by now. Stepping off the platform interrupts the script, even if only for a while. Meanwhile, the brain is doing something brutally simple. Intermittent reinforcement, unpredictable rewards, keeps animals pressing levers. Social media runs on that schedule, but the relief you feel when you don't post is also reinforcement. If every time you consider sharing, you also feel dread, and every time you close the app, you feel your shoulders drop, the nervous system learns. Silence equals safety. That's not weakness, it's conditioning. The body picks the route that hurts least. Grief is another reason people vanish and rarely say why. Some losses don't translate to captions. A breakup you're not ready to define, a parent's slow decline, the private collapse of a dream you never announced. Platforms love resolution, announcement, arc, lesson learned. But real grief is a long, unphotogenic middle with no takeaway slide. Disappearing allows mourning to proceed at the speed of the heart, rather than the speed of content. There's also a subtler truth. Many vanishers are, in person, unusually thoughtful. They remember details. They listen hard. They feel other people's feelings like weather rolling in. That level of attunement makes a crowded feed feel like a thunderstorm. Pulling away is not a rejection of people. It's a temporary shelter from a sky that won't stop talking. The empathy that makes someone a beautiful friend offline can make them a ghost online because the cost of staying visible is paid in a currency they can't afford right now. And yet, the hurt of not being missed is real. It isn't a sign that you lack value. It's a sign that platforms are designed to replace attention instantly. The stream keeps streaming. Most people aren't unkind, they're overwhelmed. The same design that exhausts you numbs them. If your disappearance doesn't ripple, it's because the water is engineered to close over quickly. That's a design feature, not a verdict on your worth. For creators and people whose work lives online, the story has another layer. Identity fusion. When labor, livelihood, and self-expression all pass through the same glass rectangle, every wobble in engagement feels like a wobble in self. Vanishing can be a way to disentangle personhood from metrics, to remember that a craft existed before dashboards, and that you existed before the craft. None of this needs a moral. There's no neat lesson hiding here, only recognition. If you've gone silent, it might be because your body asked for quiet long before your mind had language for it. It might be because grief doesn't want company. It might be because you're tired of being watched by people who don't know your laugh. It might be because comparison cut a groove and you needed to step off the track. It might be because you wanted to test a terrifying hypothesis. If I stop performing, who still reaches for me? And now you're living with the answers, complicated and true. Disappearing from social media is not proof that you don't care, or that you're weak, or that you've failed the modern test of visibility. It can be a boundary. It can be a refuge. It can be the only form of honesty that feels possible when words won't form yet. If the feed didn't notice, that's about the feed. If you noticed, that's about you. And noticing is the most human thing you're allowed to do. Underneath all of this is a simple message I wish more of us heard growing up. You're allowed to protect your attention. You're allowed to be a whole person without witnesses. You're allowed to disappear from the timeline and still exist fully in your life. So if you've gone quiet, or you're about to, take this with you. You are not less real without an audience. You are not less loved because a feed forgot. Your worth didn't evaporate with your last post. The world is still here, your world, with people who can meet you where you are, and a self that is worth tending in private. Rest, rebuild. When you're ready, you can decide what visibility means for you. And if you never want to perform again, that too is a valid, brave way to live.